Hey kiddos, we are looking at comparing fractions and decimals as well as ordering them this week. Remember that when we are comparing fractions, we can use the butterfly method, which is our cross multiplication. And then if we're comparing decimals, we start with the greatest place value and move over, each time comparing until we find a difference. So here we go, love bugs. 12 times 3 is 36. 4 times 9 is 36. These are equivalent. Coming over to my decimals, 0 and 0 are the same. 3/10 and 0/10. 3/10 is greater. Starting over here, 1 whole, 0 wholes. I don't need to go any further with that one. This multiplies to 80. This multiplies to 70. So 80 is going to be larger. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 2/3 is larger. 6/10 and 6/10, 2/100, 3/100, 634 thousandths is going to be the larger one. That's the end of our first page. These are pretty simplistic, so this won't be a very long video in the beginning. All right, page number 2, still comparing fractions and decimals using the butterfly method and comparing decimals using the place value method. So this one, 6/10, 0/10. 7 times 4 is 28. 12 times 2 is 24. 6 times 4 is 24. 5 times 1 is 5. 7/10, 0/10. Oh, that just made its own. Okay. 2/10, 3/10. 7 times 2 is 14. 3 times 6 is 18. That is the end of our second page. Again, these don't take a ton of time. The ordering will take a little bit more time. So, number 1, make all of your fractions into decimals. It's much easier to compare them when they're all the same. So I'm going to change my 6/100 to 6/100 as a decimal. Remember, we want to put it in the place value that says its name. And I'm just going to go ahead and convert them all. So this is going to be 44/100. I can times these both by 2 to get 100. So that's going to be 42/100. I can times these both by 5, so that would be 15/100. 2/8, I'm going to have to divide. When I divide that, I get 25/100. I can also think of this as 1/4, if I know that one. Oh no, I just deleted my work. Good thing I can do this pretty quickly. All right, so we said that was 44/100. And that was 42/100, and that was 15/100, and that was 25/100, and then this one is 7/10. Once we have that, then we can go ahead and order them using our decimal value. So if I want to order them, you can order these from greatest to least or least to greatest. I left it up to you as long as there was a pattern. I prefer least to greatest. So we would have 6/100, 43/100, and then 98/100. For this one, we would have 44/100, 54/100, and 72/100, just putting them in order, least to greatest. Here we would have 3/10, 42/100, and 47/100. 15/100, 54/100, 71/100. And then this one we have 25/100, 31/100, and 405 thousandths. 22/100, 68/100, and 7/10. Remember, 7/10 is the same as 70/100. So if you get stuck on that, we can add as many zeros as we want to place save to help our brain make good connections. Coming down here, again, I want to make them all into decimals. 3/5, I can times that by 20. So that would be 60/100. 20 I can times by 5. And then 17 times 5 is 85/100. I can times these both by 2, which would give me 64/100. I can multiply these both by 4, which would give me 52/100. And then 7/8 I have to divide out. but we know that eighths is one of our bases. And let's go ahead and put them in order from greatest to least again. So we have 200ths, because remember, 3/10, 2/10, 0/10. Then we have 2300ths, 3/10, which is the same as 3000ths. Over here, we have 1900ths, 5300ths, 6000ths. Down here, we have 4800ths, 8500ths, 8700ths. Over here, we have 400ths, 2/10, 6400ths. Down here, watch this one. 0/10, 1/10. They look very similar, but I put a 0 place saver in there to make sure you were paying attention. And then this last one, 7000ths, 7800ths, 800, 7500ths. That's the end of this fourth page. We have one more. Make sure they are all decimals. So 4100ths. I can multiply 20 by 5 to get 6000ths. 1/5 would be 2000ths. 3/8 would be 375 thousandths. 6/10, and we can multiply that by 4 to get 9200ths. All right, watch these zeros. These were very close. For this one, these are all pretty equivalent in the amount of digits they had. No tricks. For this one, we had two that were the same value. So they can go in order like that. 0/10 is going to go first. Then this one, 37 is smaller than 38. Don't worry that it has more numbers. It's not bigger, right? Last one is 600ths, 6/10, 610 thousandths or 10 thousandths. And then the last one, this has an extra digit, but we can use our 0 place saver. Don't let me get you with those little tricks. If you have any questions on the homework from this week, please bring them with you to class.